Hello, I'm Dr. Harper. This video is on Project Management BANA 6650, Spring 2021. And this video is an exam study guide. I overview what to study, how to study for it, and the topics. So let's bring up the study guide. In the study guide, the exam will be online, multiple choice, timed, open book, open notes. The exam will be over 20 multiple choice questions. 2 points per question, and you'll have 60 minutes to take the exam. No collaboration is allowed. But also, during that 60 minutes, you can only take it one time. So be very careful and study for it before you take it. And you can't take it a second time. And it all must be done before the end of the course, which is May 15th. Okay, exam information from the syllabus. So I copied this right from the syllabus. An examination will be given during the course. Exams will be online through Canvas, multiple choice, timed, open book, open notes, and designed for evaluation. I'll emphasize that here at the beginning and also at the end, that I'm designing the exam to evaluate what you know, not to challenge what you don't know. So if you prepare for this from this guide and you have everything laid out, it's open book, open notes. If you know where to find the material, you should be fine, because I'm evaluating, or actually more validating, that you do know the information. Each student must take their own exam. It's not a group project. No collaboration is allowed. Do it yourself. Collaboration is cheating and represents academic dishonesty. If academic dishonesty occurs on the exam, the student will receive a 0 for the exam, and any incident of academic dishonesty may be reported to the Internal Affairs Committee of the Business School at the University of Colorado Denver for further action. And I've been here long enough that this has happened, and for further action, could be just a 0, could be an F, it could be suspension or expulsion. For the exam, each student is responsible to use only notes and material from this course. Each student is responsible to use only a calculator, no other equipment, especially devices such as phones or communication devices, laptops for communication. And notice I keep saying communication. Some people say, can I use my laptop because I have all my notes there? That's fine. As far as the material from this course, you can't Google something and go to a chat room or something. No exam taken will result in a 0 for the exam, and no exam will be considered after the end of the course, which is May 15th. Okay, so let's get into it. First of all, the exam study guide. It's going to be made up of 2 areas. First, PMBOK, approximately 10 questions, 2 points per question. That's the first half of the exam. And I've divided this up into 2 parts: definitions and relationships. Know the knowledge areas, know the processes within the knowledge area, and the process groups that they come in. And so this is just identification. It's just identifying where things are and just getting used to the structure of PMBOK. But also ITTO, the input, tools, techniques, and outputs, where things reside. Where is the work breakdown structure? Where is the scope statement? Where is the charter? Those kinds of things. The critical things, the main things, to make sure you know where they are and where to find them. But then, on the other side, the definitions and mechanics and recognition. Here, I'm going to focus on CPM and PERT. And notice these are definitions. When I say mechanics / recognition, sometimes you'll be calculating things, but it'll just be simple addition or multiplication. But then the recognition. Sometimes I'll give you a table just recognizing where the answers are from the table. And so understand the mechanics, understand the tables and the graphs when you see them. First of all, CPM PERT. Next is the Gantt chart, activity on node, activity on arrow. It just recognize how to interpret them, how to read them from the lecture and from the notes. And finally, earned value analysis. How to read it, how to calculate it, how to interpret it. So all of that is part of definitions and interpretations. And so there's 10 questions right there. Approximately 5 and 5, approximately. 5 over here, 5 on the left, 5 on the right. Okay? And so that's PMBOK. And so I recommend you just have everything laid out so you know where everything is as you go through. Okay, the last half is Waisaki. And here's where you get into effective project management. Approximately 10 questions, 2 points per question, and that's the last half. And so again, I've broken it up into definitions and descriptions, and then definitions and applications. And that's a little bit more detail. As far as the higher level description and definitions here, make sure you're aware of the project landscape quadrants. Quadrant 1, 2, 3, 4. Which one's the complex and which one's the traditional. And then remember there are PMLC types, which is TPM, APM, and XPM, and then the models. There's linear and incremental, and those are broken down. Iterative, adaptive, those are broken down and explained. And then extreme and emergency, those are identified and defined. And then we have the hybrid model, which is more of a framework rather than a model itself. And it emphasizes the framework, how you would go about managing the different models within the different types. And so the hybrid is moving back and forth between the different types. It's not just taking one type, one model, and running with it. It's moving back and forth. You have different phases in this framework. You have stage gates going from one phase to the other phase, and then within each phase you have steps. And so just recognize the structure, the framework, and how that works. And there again, this is definitions and descriptions. And then on the right-hand side, definitions and applications. Well, here's where we have, I say, process groups. And what I mean by this is PMBOK have their process groups within the knowledge areas. Well, in some cases, Wysocki uses the same terminology. In some cases, he changes the terminology. So be aware of those changes. Also, the definitions and applications within the process groups know what resides in those process groups. And so I say, here's the initiation group, and here's what he does within this. Here's the closing group, or here's the launching group, and here's what he does within this. So recognize the process groups, the definitions, but also how they're applied within it. And then the deliverables. Make sure you're fully aware of the conditions of satisfaction, the project overview statement, definitions statement, the resource breakdown structure, WBS, CPM, EVM. Make sure you're aware of what they are, where they are, when they're done, what leads into the other, and when you have an objective, and how one leads to the other within his structure. Okay, and then you have the PMLC comparisons, characteristics, when to use, and I did that at the end. And I think here is putting substance to the hybrid model over here, the hybrid framework, also putting substance and also structure to the deliverables here. And so when do you use what? When do you go back and forth? When do you know when to change from one to the other? And those kinds of questions, or 1 or 2 questions, I'll ask about that. Now remember, there's only 10 questions. I can think of 10 to 20 questions over here. I'm just taking approximately 5. Approximately 5 over here. So I'm not trying to ask things you don't know. I'm trying to ask things you do know. And if there's only 5 questions, I'll pick the 5 questions each time on the right and left that you should know. It's pretty general. Okay, and then exam designed for evaluation. Let me finish with this little phrase right here. I don't try to get complicated. I try to keep it as simple as possible, as direct as possible. So there are do's and don'ts. First of all, and probably a lot of you already know this, and even if you know this, go with me. It's good to review. 1, the first row is the do's. The second is the don'ts. First of all, read the question carefully. A mistake people made, and I've made the same mistake, is you start reading the first question, you have a topic, you think you know what the question is, you answer it incorrectly. Because it starts with a topic, but then asks something very specific. Read the whole question carefully to know what's being asked. Second, read the answers carefully, because the answers identify how you are to think about the question. Read the question carefully, read the answers carefully, then you can say, now I know the connection between these. Because a question can be interpreted different ways. But read the question carefully and the answers, then you go to number 3, where you connect the material with the two. Then you go to the material, here's where it's at. And a lot of times reading the question and answers carefully, you'll identify where the material is to answer that, or to make sure you're correct in the answer. And so then you go to the material and there's the answer. And so I'm trying not to ask things too complicated. I try to be very direct, and there's only one answer. I don't have questions like how many of these are true. I say which one is true. And some are obviously not true. One is obviously is true. That's what I'm after. Those are the do's. Now the don'ts. Don't overthink it. In other words, don't start thinking things that aren't there. Well, what if? Occam's razor. The simplest answer is probably the correct answer. That's an Occam's razor. You can look it up. Or you probably know it better than I do. I've probably used it as much as I have. In other words, the simple answer is probably the correct answer unless it violates the question of the answers. So don't overthink it. You can overthink anything. Be careful you don't overthink that. So that is a danger at this level because this material is so rich. There's so much you can do with the material, and there's so many situations that could change how it's applied, but don't go there. This is a very simple, the first level answer. So don't overthink it. Number 2, don't complicate it. In other words, don't think the answer is more complicated than it is. So that's very similar to overthinking, but overthinking is going out. Complicating is going in and being more introverted. Well, I can look at the details here and separate the details out. That's not really what's being asked. So this detail, apply this. Well, don't complicate it more than what it is. Again, keep it simple. Keep it simple. The mistake here is when they start looking at the details of, let's say, a technique or a definition, you can always think of the case in point to the contrary. So don't do that. Don't overcomplicate it. The third thing, which notice the overthinking is cognitive, complicating is much more logical. But 3, the affective domain, don't doubt yourself. Be confident. You know what you know. You know this a lot better than you think you do. Don't doubt yourself. Say, I know the answer to this. Yes, it fits. Go for it. Move on. And so if you do these quite well, then you should be done with this exam way less than 60 minutes. And so just go through it deliberately. You got it. Move on, move on, move on. And so this is just exam suggestions, and because I do want everyone to do well, because the exam is designed for everyone to do well. Okay, well, that's all I have for this review. I'm going to have another review for the projects coming up, but you can start studying with this, get the exam out of the way, or get the projects out of the way, whichever one you want. There'll be another video for the project instructions, but this is all I have for the exam study guide. I hope this helps, and good luck. Do well, and between now and the next time I see you, take care of yourself. Be safe.